Okay, well, welcome to the Simplify Your Life live stream, where I've taken all of the things that I've learned over my career to be able to simplify life. I know it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Certainly, COVID has added to the angst, added to the stress, added to the anxiety that we deal with. Supply chains are messed up. Uh, the workforce is a mess, and we can feel like we're stuck in our careers at the jobs that we're at. People want to jump ship, they want to go somewhere else, they want to head for greener pastures, and all of that comes down to you and where you are in your career. And I've sat down with so many people recently, and one of the things that triggered this was another recent meeting where people were asking me, where this individual was asking me some of the same questions for the answers that I'm going to provide you today. And you can take this at face value and you can say, that's stupid, I'm never going to want to do that. Or you can say, I'm not sure, I disagree with you. Or you can be the person that says, you know what, I'm going to try that. It doesn't sound like conventional wisdom, but I think that maybe that'll end up working out. So, simplifying life, making life great, I boiled it down to three keys. Three key things that you can do to simplify your life. Number one is know your boss. Know your boss. A lot of times, people will go into a job, will go into a position, will go into a company and feel like they're doing a role. And you are doing a role, but you're doing a role for your boss. And the boss is who's going to determine if you're successful in that position or not, if you're successful in what you're doing or not. Now, me as an introvert, me as someone who's more scientifically minded, I was very, very focused on my job, my task, the things I needed to get done. And I basically, for years and years, didn't even pay attention to what the boss wanted unless the boss was asking me something to do something. And I didn't understand sometimes why he or she was mad, and I didn't understand sometimes why he or she was happy. I'm like, not only am I doing the job, I'm doing it faster than you wanted, I'm doing it higher quality than you wanted. But the truth was, I wasn't doing what was important to them and what they actually wanted. So, if we think about our boss, we have to think about number one, how are they managed or how are they measured for success? If we know how they're measured for success, then we know that how we can help them. They have a boss that they get yelled at over things. They have a boss that rewards them for things. And look, for me, I've been in too many HR meetings about giving people that worked for me promotions, having to choose between the myriad of people and the little handful of promotions that they gave me to be able to use. You want your name to be one of the top three that your boss thinks of when a promotion is coming around. And the way that you're going to do that, the very first thing that you're going to do to be able to do that is to know what is important to them, what things they get credit for their boss for, and what things they get yelled at for their boss for. So you don't want to do the things they get yelled at for. And as an innovator, man, I crossed the line a lot of times, starting from my early deli days working in the grocery store, making crazy pizzas, to designing cars, to consulting for Fortune 500 companies. And look, you can only be as creative as your boss is going to allow, because if it hits the fan, and it will, then you're going to get in trouble and you're not going to be considered for that promotion. Number two is regarding your boss, is you're going to have to be closer to your boss than your peers are. And you got to think, man, I don't want to spend time on that. I don't want to waste time getting close to them. They don't want to spend time with me. I'm not important to them. If you don't want to get closer to your boss than your peers, then anytime a peer says something negative about you to your boss is going to believe them and not you. You have to focus on this. You have to get close to them. You've got to share updates with them, regardless of whether you think they should be updated or not. You've got to share the things that are stressing them, that may potentially stress them. You definitely have to call out a teammate that is doing something inappropriate to your boss before they do, before it gets to a public meeting, before it gets out later. So it's never too early to share stuff with your boss. Get close to your boss. Finally, and what I think the most important thing about your boss is their style. Okay. Bosses are hardcore, leaders are hardcore, and they don't always share the same values as you. And when you think you're doing a job well, and when they think you're doing a job well, could be completely different. I've experienced this multiple times. In fact, there was this time in my career where I went several years just setting super high performance standards on all of the traditional things that we were measured at. Was looked over for promotion, and I couldn't figure it out why my boss was so frustrated. And then someone handed me a book. And this book is key to unlocking the hardcore bosses. It is High Maintenance Relationships by Les Parrott. How to handle impossible people. How to deal with the cold shoulder. How to deal with the critic. How to deal with the flirt. How to deal with the green-eyed, envious monster, the control freak, and the workhorse, as well as the martyr. Now, I've found that you're going to come across the control freak and the workhorse in the professional arena more often than not. And those two people are ones that are very difficult to please. Well, my boss was part of both of those, if not fully both of those. So what I did in the next year is I looked at those bullet points in that book and I said, I'm just going to do this. So like, for instance, a control freak wants to feel like they're making the decision. So you bring them 3 options and you sell your option that you want as the most favorable to him, and then let him decide or her decide which one to do. And inevitably, they'll pick that one that you think, and then they think they actually made the decision, and then they get credit for making the decision, even though it was your idea. As far as the workhorse, like what hours do they want to work? And you need to be there when they're there. So if they're coming in at 8 a.m. or if they're coming in at 6 a.m., whatever they consider working hard, you need to be able to work hard. And so what I did over that next year is I just focused on those couple of things, and I let my job performance drop significantly, probably by at least 25%. And I got promoted the next year. So you need to know what your boss gets successful for, get close to them, and then understand their style. So that's boss. Number 2 on how to simplify your life is to know yourself. Or to know your family. So a friend of mine always said, happy wife, happy life. And in corporate America, especially for men, and I think a lot of times for women too, it's the career is before the family. We make choices that harm our family to advance our career. When we're early in our career, when we're in our early 20s, we think this is so important. And we think, oh, we're gonna make more money, we're gonna live in a cooler house, we're gonna drive sweet cars, we're gonna be able to give our kids opportunities. And yes, I did all of those things for my children and I advanced my career. But simultaneously, I was very, very particular on what I did with my family. And I actually made a huge pivot at one point in my career and said, look, I don't care what the boss thinks they need out of me. This is what they're going to get out of me. Now, fortunately, I was able to time that with an employer change. So what they saw of me was what they got. And that's what they saw. So when we think about family, we have to understand that we only have so much relational capital. And we've got to be able to spend that relational capital wisely. And every time we work late, every time we go on an unexpected business trip, every time that we relocate or chase a raise, we're spending that relational capital. And we only earn that back when we give back to them. Now, no job is going to care once you leave. you can go back in 3 months or a year, and I guarantee not only will have been you have been replaced, but some people there who are working there aren't even going to remember you because they've hired new people. And all they know is that maybe there was someone who went ahead of them and maybe not. So even if you work somewhere 40 years, your spouse or your kids are going to be there after that. Now, how do you keep your family happy? I have found the Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman to be the fundamental starting point for making your family happy. So Gary goes, he's way more savvy and social researched and everything about this. He's got a doctorate. I certainly don't. I think he does. But there are five different ways that people feel loved, and your wife and your kids are going to have one primary one of those, and then they're going to have a secondary one. So if your spouses or your husbands, if your spouse's love language is quality time, buying them gifts isn't going to do it. And if buying gifts is their thing and you're trying to spend quality time, it's not going to do it. Your kids, same thing. Now, of course, your kids always need positive words of affirmation, but for some children, words of affirmation is their primary love language. And saying even the most slightly negative thing will beat them down, but saying things that are positive to them will build them up. One of the things that I practiced with my children during my pivot was I picked the day of the month that their birthday was. So if it was on the 24th, every 24th of that month, I did something special with them for maybe an hour or 2 hours. If they were in school, I'd rip them out of school. We'd go to lunch, have a fun time. If it was on the weekend, then we would have some special activity planned. Or if they wanted to do something in the evening, that we would do that. And they knew on that day, that was the daddy date that they had with them. And so I would pour into them in their love language, and I continue to do that. I have 3 adult children. They all live within 20 minutes of me. Great relationship with them. How do you know you have a great relationship with them? When they ask you for advice. If your kids are asking you for advice, then they know that you care, and that they know that you're going to tell them something wise. So go do the 5 love languages. Choose family before career. Last thing, how you're going to simplify your life is you need to know you. You need to know yourself. And I think a lot of us, it's really easy to say, hey, I know who I am. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And I think early in our career, we think we do. And if you've done any personal assessments, maybe you've done Myers-Briggs, or maybe you've done, my current favorite, the Enneagram, you balk at some of the features that are the negative aspects of who you are. And you say, well, that can't be me. Or you say, well, that Myers-Briggs, I really want to be a ENTP and not a ISTJ. And then you're not honest with who you are. If you're getting to 10, 15 years in your career, certainly if you're at 20 years in your career, if you're not doing an honest self-assessment, then you're choosing a path that's ultimately going to lead to frustration, overworking. So you need to know who you are, what motivates you, what inspires you, what tasks are good for you. Maybe you started a career that was going to be what you thought was going to be fulfillment, and it ended up not at all. So in that case, I have recommended many, many people change your job, get something new, quit, go back to school, start at the quote bottom again, and they're always happier. Secondly, is what goals do you have? I love the exercise that Stephen Covey did in Habits of Effective People, and the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. What do you want your headstone to say? I mean, that is a humbling thought. I've been to several funerals over the past few years. A couple of them I helped decide what was going on the headstone, and it got me thinking, man, what do I want my headstone to say? And then what things do I need to start doing today that align up with my natural interest, my natural proclivity, the things that I really enjoy? And then lastly, about you is faith. And whatever your faith is, for me, I have one faith that I practice, but whatever your faith is, you need to go deep in it. Don't go superficial in it. Harvard has done years and years of research, and the number one correlated thing to a human flourishing is involvement in a faith community. Faith can give us things so much beyond what a family can do individually, what a job can do individually, what we can do individually. And it brings community, it brings purpose, it brings accountability, it brings us to a point where we can reflect on ourselves, and where we can grow in an element, where we can give back. And I think it's really easy as busy professionals to push off faith, to push off family, to want to replace the boss. And so many times I've seen individuals do that, and I've seen over my career those individuals become jaded or angry. And yeah, some of them I've seen, become successful, and but there's always some hollowness to it because they had some element that they didn't have that they wanted. Now look, your job, your family, and your hobbies, any one of those can take 24 hours of your day, all 24 hours of your day. If you are focused on doing the right things instead of just doing a bunch of things, you're going to get more. So I had to actually cancel my video game I was just playing after my wood workshop, which I had downstairs, after researching what kayak I'm going to be fishing out of this summer to do this seminar. Now, why am I able to do this? Because I've gotten to a place that I can say, I know what's important. I know what I want to spend time on. I'm the executive director for a nonprofit here in Columbus. I volunteer for another nonprofit. I used Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University to get me in a financial place where I don't have to work all the time. And yeah, if you want to chase the dollar, then go do that. I spend a lot of time looking at things. So neuroplasticity is really big to me. I can talk blockchain. I can talk, mica pigmentation. I can talk James Webb Space Telescope and things that are happening in the universe, or quantum mechanics, because I like to study and research things. I haven't in years and years spent more than 40 hours in a week. And honestly, if you're working 40 hours a week, you're probably doing too much. And people say, man, I can't get away with 40 hours a week. Yeah, you can get away with less. In the bulk of my career, I have not worked 40 hours. And you say, well, were you at work for 40 years? Yes, but I would take these segments where I would get refreshed. I would go off, I would do something that refreshed me, and I would come back and I'd be more impactful. So from a productivity standpoint, be on when you're on. Carey Nieuwhof has a great book, a brand new book that just came out that addresses that. It's going to tell you how to be impactful. Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, high maintenance relationships for your boss. If you're going to do these things, you're going to simplify life. You're going to be able to do the things you enjoy. You're going to be able to have longevity to it, and it's just going to be a blast. So take those things. Hey, if anyone wants to get a hold of me for more details, feel free to email me, adam@adsmichael.com. And that's adam@adzmikl.com, adzmikl.com. And I will reach out to you. It was great to see you today. The people who are online, thank you, and hope this helps. We'll see you next time.